How to scale your property portfolio and build a bigger property portfolio. Hi, I'm Jaco Grobbelaar, the founder and managing director of Prosperity Enterprises. This video is about financial freedom. As Warren Buffett says, you never want to depend on a single income, but you want to make investments to create secondary sources of income. And that is exactly what property is about. When we invest in property, we want to create wealth, we want to create financial freedom so that we can live the lives that we want to live. I would classify leverage as three things: other people's money, other people's time, and other people's skills. If you want to be successful in property investment, or in anything for that matter, you need to learn how to leverage. How do you leverage other people's time? How do you leverage other people's money? And how do you leverage other people's skills? If you do not learn how to use leverage, you will reach a ceiling very quickly in your life where you either don't have enough money, enough time, or enough skills to do what you want to do. So when it comes to property investment, you want to find ways to use other people's money. You want to find ways to use as much of the bank's money as possible to build your property portfolio. You also want to find ways for your property portfolio not to be dependent on how much time you have available, but to leverage on other people's time. And also not wait till you acquire all the skills that you need to be a property investor, because you will never be able to acquire all of the skills, but to leverage on other people's skills. So let's talk about other people's money. What I love about property is the fact that you can buy property with very little of your own money. It is actually possible to buy $1 million property with almost none of your own cash. And how do you do that? Through leverage, through other people's money. And that is a great advantage, because that means that you can actually build a significant asset base, and a significantly bigger asset base than in any other asset class that you would invest in. And if you make good investments, the returns on that significantly bigger asset base will make you wealthy. So let's talk about the effect of leverage. When you leverage an investment, you amplify the returns. You make it more than what it would have been if you used your own money. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine you've got $100,000 and you invest that in a traditional investment that grows with 10%. That $100,000 grows to $110,000, right? That's a 10% return, or a 10% return on your cash. But if you are going to invest in property, you're not going to buy a $100,000 investment. You're probably going to buy $1 million investment and borrow $900,000 from the bank. Now, when you are sitting with that investment that grows with 10%, guess what? It's not your $100,000 that grow with 10%, it's the $1 million that grows with 10%. So your $1 million investment grows to 1.1 million, you owe the bank $900,000, and you've just created $100,000 equity or return. That is 100% return, even though the investment only grew with 10%. But leverage is a double-edged sword. What applies for the one side applies for the other side. Because imagine if this investment depreciated with only 10%. Imagine if this investment that was worth $1 million, this property that was worth $1 million, is now worth only $900,000. That's a 10% decline. Suddenly you've wiped out 100% of your cash because you owe the bank $900,000. So that is why leverage amplifies what is already there, and that is why I love property and leverage, because property is an asset class, an asset that tends to keep its value very well. And if I can sit with an investment that appreciates, I can use those returns and amplify it by using leverage. So when it comes to property investment, it's important to understand the returns and cash flow of property. In property, there are two returns that you can have. On the one side, you have capital appreciation. That is the capital growth of the property on a year-to-year basis. And on the other side, you are sitting with cash flow, your net rental yield, the rental yield that this property is generating on an annual basis. And those two returns combined makes up the return on your investment. So with property, when you look at the cash flow of property, remember that there are inflows and there are outflows. What are your inflows? Your inflows are the rental income that you earn, the refinancing when you refinance that property, or if you sell that property. In all of those instances, you are receiving funds, you are receiving an inflow. But then there are outflows. Your biggest outflow is your monthly bond payment. Then you've got the rental agency commission, you've got levies, you've got rates and taxes, you've got maintenance, and you've got insurance. Now what you want to do is you want to ensure, think of a tank with water in. You want to ensure that the water that runs in on the top runs in faster than the water that runs out at the bottom. And secondly, should you find yourself in a position where the water runs in slower in the top than what it is running out at the bottom, that you have sufficient water in the tank, sufficient cash reserves to carry you and sustain you for the period that the water will run in slower than what it is running out. And it's exactly the same with cash flow. You want to make sure that you have positive cash flow on your property portfolio. And if you do not have positive cash flow on your property portfolio, that you have sufficient cash reserves to sustain you and to carry you for the time being, whilst your property portfolio is becoming a positive cash flow property portfolio. Now with property investment, refinancing is magical, because what refinancing means is you can acquire an asset below market value, or you could acquire an asset and that asset appreciates in value, and now you go back to the bank or the financing institution and you ask if you can refinance this property. That means that you want to obtain additional funds from this property by borrowing more money on that property. Now you might be asking, we're going in the wrong direction here. I want to pay off the property. I don't want to have more debt on the property, but that is exactly what leverage is. It's obtaining more debt on the property and making capital available. Capital for reserves, but also capital to subsidize your shortfalls, and capital to acquire additional properties to expand your property portfolio. That is how property investors become mega property owners. Is they start with one, they refinance the one, and they use those funds to maybe obtain the second or even the second and the third property. Then they have 3 properties at a later stage that they can refinance and use those funds to acquire the next couple of properties. And in that way, a property investor expands their property portfolio. That is what we call leverage. So how do you leverage with property? Firstly, you need to make sure that you've got the correct structuring in place. You do not want to buy property in your own name. When you buy property in your own name, you very quickly reach a ceiling from a debt capacity as to the number of properties that you can acquire. So make sure that you acquire your properties in the correct structure within a property company, with a holdings trust being the shareholder. Secondly, you want to make sure that your entities are healthy. What does that mean? Profitable, solvent, liquid. Profitable means your property entity is making a profit. Solvency means that the value of your assets are worth more than the value of your debt. And liquidity means that you have sufficient liquid cash, current assets, that can sustain you in the short term. And then you need to make sure that your personal profile is taken care of, that you have a good credit score in place. Because remember, whether you are buying property in your own name or whether you are buying it in an entity, you are going to need a strong credit score to obtain financing. Because if you obtain financing for an entity, it's very likely that you will still need to sign surety for that entity. So look after your credit score. Make sure that you've got a good credit score in place so that you can leverage with property. Property is a beautiful asset to leverage, to refinance, to make capital available, and to expand your property portfolio. If you would like to see more of this content, remember to like and subscribe.